Join us today on the Low Code Revolution. I'm going to be joined by Power Platform MVP Eliza Benitez, and she's going to be talking about model-driven apps and how it can do in-app notifications. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome to the Low Code Revolution. I'm April, and today I'm joined by Eliza Benitez, and she's going to be talking about how we can have in-app notifications in our model-driven applications. Hey Eliza, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Hey April, I'm so good, thanks.
Cool. Well, why don't you, I know you pretty well. We go way back to the Flow Fam days, but for everyone that doesn't know, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and how you got started with the Power Platform.
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Eliza. I'm a Microsoft MVP based in New Zealand. I started with the Microsoft Power Platform around 2018. So, the story behind it is that I've always loved Dynamics 365. That's the application that I started out with. And then in 2016, Power Apps and Power Automate came along, and I fell in love with Power Automate all because of an EDX Power Platform course by another fellow member in our community, Shane Young. And from that course, I just fell in love with Cloud Flows, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we probably started with the Power Platform around the same time, and Shane Young's probably solely handily responsible for getting so many people excited about the Power Platform, right? All right, so we're talking about a model-driven app topic today, and on the show, the episodes we had so far, we've really kind of stayed in the Canvas app lane. So I thought it'd be cool if you would do a quick overview of maybe what's the difference between model-driven and Canvas Power Apps, and when would we use each one?
Yeah, sure. So, model-driven apps, just a bit of a history. It's existed way before Canvas apps came into the picture. So, it's a bit more mature. There's a lot more functionality and inbuilt integration with the other Microsoft technologies. But what I love about model-driven apps is that it's a unified interface as well as a unified experience. So in Canvas apps, traditionally when you build your screens and when you want to have actions such as a save button or, exit from the screen back to a gallery, all of that is already inbuilt with model-driven apps. So when you're looking at a form, which is the equivalent of a screen in Canvas apps, you're always going to know where the save button is or where the share button is as well. And then when you exit out of that form, it's going to bring you back to the previous view that you were in. So you're always going to have that same experience. And one other thing, which I think is a bonus benefit, is that it can also go offline. So it has the offline capabilities already there for you. You don't need to do any extra development for it. It's simply a matter of configuration and then testing that it works. But another bonus benefit is that it has integration with Microsoft 365 products. So you can also automatically generate Word documents and Excel files on the click of a button from a record in your model-driven app. So there's a lot of functionality that already comes with model-driven apps that you don't necessarily need to develop for. And the other benefit is that when you're building and designing your forms or your views, it's a matter of point, click, and then drag and drop. So you don't necessarily need to know Power FX formulas. It's pretty much straightforward, and I really like it. And I think the team has done a really good job in making continuous improvements each year. So I'm really excited to see what comes up this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been getting more into model-driven applications myself, and there's just a great use case for using, a combination of both, maybe Canvas app for a mobile front end and then model-driven for like a back end, so many use cases.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's one of the cool things, because if there is some things that you can't find that you want to do in the model driven app, you can now create custom pages and bring in Canvas apps in there as well. So you get the best of both worlds, really.
yeah, exactly. They're really working towards that kind of unified experience across all the type of Power Apps that we can build. Now, speaking of Power Apps, we're talking about in-app notifications. So could
Yes,
you
yes,
kind of
we
explain
are.
to us, like, what are in-app notifications exactly, and why might we want to use them, and how do we use them in model-driven apps?
Yeah, so the best way to understand what in-app notifications are in model-driven apps is think of the toaster in your kitchen. So you have this toaster, you grab 2 slices of bread, you adjust the time in terms of how well toasted you want it to be. And then after that time is up, your bread pops up and voila, that's it. So that is essentially what an in-app notification is. When you're in your model-driven app and you want to alert your users that something has happened or they need to take action on a particular record, the in-app notification will appear, so it'll pop up. And you can also have call to action. So in other words, if they need to view a record, they can click on the action and it'll take them directly to the record. If you want to take them to a URL, let's say it's outside of your model-driven app, that's possible as well. So that's what an in-app notification is. It's essentially to alert your users of your model-driven apps that they need to take action on something that has occurred.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like something we definitely need. I talk about user experience a lot in UI and, making sure your users are aware of things that they need to take action in. So these in-app notifications sound like something that we can really use to help increase and make our UX better in our model-driven apps. So I'm really excited. Do you have a demo for us to show us how this works?
Yeah, I do. So on my screen, I have a model-driven app that I created, and the use case is for insurance companies. So whenever an insurance claim is created and the claims advisor marks it as it requires a claims assessor, we want all the claims assessors to receive a notification that, hey, a claim has been raised and you need to go review it and take the necessary actions to process this claim. And to do that, we're going to use in-app notifications for model-driven apps. So the way in-app notifications work is that you've got 3 ways of achieving it. The first 2 are what we call pro developer ways. So you can either use C# or JavaScript. And my favorite, the low-code way, is using my best friend, Power Automate Cloud Flows. Now, if you were to create it directly within your Cloud Flows, that's great, but I'm going to show you something else that's going to take it one step further so that you can create your in-app notifications with confidence as a low-code developer. Okay, so I'm going to show you a really fantastic tool that exists out there in our community. So this tool is known as XRMToolBox. It is your Swiss Army knife for all things model-driven app and Dataverse. So it's a tool that is created by a fellow MVP in our community. His name is Tanguy Touzard, who's based in France, and he created this XRMToolBox many years ago, and it's still going strong today. And so a lot of developers out there have since contributed to the XRMToolBox over the last few years, where they're creating tools for the community, whether you're a low-code developer or a pro-code developer. So the tool that I'm going to be showing you all today is the in-app notification builder tool. So this was created by another fellow MVP, Ivan Fitzko, who's based in Croatia. So I'm going to take you to the XRMToolBox right now. So this is what it looks like, and I'm not going to go through the steps of installing it and how you can connect to your environment, because there's a lot of online material out there that'll show you the steps. So first of all, when you open up your XRMToolBox, you connect to your environment, and then you can search for the tool and install it within your XRMToolBox. So to search for the tool, you essentially go to the tool library, and then you can search all of the tools that exist today within XRMToolBox. So if I just type in app, we'll see that it immediately appears. So I already have installed it in my XRMToolBox. And then once you've installed it, you can either search for it in here by using the filter. And then when you already use that tool, it'll also show on the left-hand side in your recently used tools. So now I'm going to click on this, and now it's going to load the in-app notification builder for model-driven apps. And I'll explain the layout of what you're seeing next. So on the top left, it's going to show you all of the model-driven apps that your user account that you're signed in with has access to. So in my scenario, I can see the claims model-driven app that I've created. Next, we've got this button here, the notification status. Currently, it's showing green, and that means it's enabled. If it's not enabled, you'll see a red square. And what I really like about this feature is that in one click, you can enable in-app notifications in your model-driven app. If you were to look at the docs.microsoft.com steps, there's a bunch of steps that you need to go through. And if you're not familiar with how to update your browser console with the required values that the guide shows you, it might be a little bit scary, but using the in-app notification builder tool in one click, it simply works. Now I'll go through the next two later on. So now I'm going to move on to this data section. So everything that you see in here will be reflected in real time on the right. So it allows you to see your in-app notification in real time. So for example, here, let's say I want to type in a new claim has been created and requires an assessor. So you can immediately see that as I type down here in the middle, it's updating in real time. So this allows me to see what my in-app notification looks like. Whereas if I was doing this directly in my Cloudflow, I wouldn't be able to see this in real time. I would have to wait until I finish building my in-app notification, execute the Cloudflow, and then see what it looks like in the model-driven app. And that's what I really love about this tool, is that as you're developing your in-app notification, again, with no code, I'm simply just typing, you're going to see it in real time over here. And then next we have the body. So the body represents the content that the user is going to see in the in-app notification. So you could do things like bold the text, you can format the text. And another nice thing is that you can also provide a hyperlink. So when I click on this button, it's going to prompt you to provide a link to a particular site. So let's say, I'll say learn about model-driven apps, and then I'm just going to head over to my browser and I'll simply copy this link, which is a lovely Microsoft Learn module. I go back into my XRMToolBox and then I paste the value and click on insert. And you can see in here that the hyperlink has been created automatically. Again, it's all a matter of typing. I'm not doing any coding as well. And the last thing that I want to show you is that you can also insert an image. So this will be in the form of a URL. So once again, I'm just going to give it a text and I'll head over to my browser and I'll copy and paste an image value into this URL field. And then voila, as you can see, the image is there straight away. I can see what my in-app notification looks like. Now, the next three fields are simply settings. We have the toast type, we've got timed and hidden. Timed is what I explained earlier, where you're going to see the in-app notification pop up. So think about your 2 slices of bread popping up from the toaster. Whereas hidden means you're not going to see that pop-up experience, but you will have an indication on the top right, which you'll see shortly, if you have any notifications that you need to take a look at. And then the expires in is a matter of when should this notification expire if you haven't viewed it. So the default is 2 weeks. And then we've got the ability to change the icon. So the icon is this icon, sorry, in the in-app notification. So we've got several icons that come out of the box, so things like failure, but because it's model-driven apps, you can also upload what we call a web resource. So if you want to have your own custom icon, it's 100% supported. So for example, I'm just going to scroll all the way down in here and select one of my custom icons.
I love how easy this is, Eliza. It kind of reminds me of like the adaptive card builder, how it builds out the, you can preview the adaptive cards, but for model-driven apps, just makes it super easy to configure this. Really slick.
Yeah, so let me just pick one of my icons that I have available. So arrow, that's probably not a good one. I just can't remember where it is from the top of my head, but that's okay. And then we move on to actions. So actions is what I talked about earlier, when you want the end user to either view a record or view simply a reference site that lives outside of model-driven apps. So again, you just click on add, and then you can add your text. So let's say I want the user to view the claim record. So when they click on the button, they've got a few options on that end user experience. You can either have it as a dialogue inline, so that means it will open up in the same tab in your browser that you're currently viewing the in-app notification in. And then you've also got a new window which will open up a new browser tab in your browser. So I'm going to choose inline. And here's where you can choose what type of action you want it to be. So I'm going to direct the user to that particular record. And then what I can do here is specify that table that represents that record. So I'm going to scroll all the way down and select my insurance claim table. And then I can also specify the form. So if you have multiple forms for this table in your model-driven app, you can easily select which form you want them to see. The ID is something that you would typically do in your Power Automate Cloudflow, which I can show you shortly. But for right now, we're just going to leave this as a default value. And simple as that, it's created that action. So then if we want to create another one, and this time we want to open up the record in a new window, you simply just change the value up here and you pretty much follow the same steps. So the table that I'm going to select this time is member, and I'll select the form member, and I'll leave the default value for the ID. And that's pretty much it in terms of building your in-app notification. So coming up here, this is my other favorite feature, is actually testing this as well in real time. So Ivan built this so that you could perform testing of your in-app notification to any user that exists and has access to that model-driven app. So I'm going to select Christy, and then I'm going to select test. And so right now it's sending that notification to Christy, the user. So what I'll do is head over to the browser where I'm logged in as Christy, the user. So I'm going to click around, and eventually what's going to happen is you're going to see that pop-up notification appear on the top right. So just bear with me. And the great thing about providing this testing functionality is, as a low-code developer, you're already starting to do certain methods that a pro code developer would do. So you've created your in-app notification and now you're testing it. And there you go. Here it is.
There it is.
It just appears up on the right. And again, you know, with one click of a button and simply selecting your user, you can test it straight away. So already you're kind of behaving as a pro code developer would. So then the next step, going back to XRMToolBox, is to go ahead and select this option here called Power Automate. So earlier I mentioned there's 3 ways of creating in-app notifications, and today we're going to be using Power Automate Cloudflows because that's a low-code way. So when you click this option, this new dialog is going to appear. So everything that you see in here, you can copy and paste into your action in your Cloudflow. So what I'll do next is head over to my browser and I'll show you that Cloudflow. So in here, I've got my Cloudflow. My trigger is whenever insurance claim record is created and it requires a claims assessor, this Cloudflow is going to be triggered. And then this is where we create our in-app notification. So in order for in-app notifications to appear, it's a table called notifications. So you simply select the notifications table, and then you can copy and paste everything that's in XRMToolBox. Once you've copy and pasted everything from XRMToolBox into your Cloudflow, that's where you can start adding in your dynamic content. So in here, I'm adding in dynamic content from my trigger so that it can direct them to the insurance claim that has been created, and it can also direct them to the member that's associated to the insurance claim. I'm also going one step further by using environment variables so that when they click on any of these links, it's going to take them to that app that this in-app notification is for. And likewise, as you scroll down, you can select the icon type. And yeah, so I'll just show you how that works right now. So I'm going to head over to my model-driven app as a different user, and we're going to view a member. So in here, this is my member, the Daily Bugle. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you know what this is about. Yeah. So I'm going to head over to my insurance tab, and I'm now going to create an insurance claim. Oh, sorry, I don't have an insurance policy. Sorry, let me just go back. Okay, I'm gonna now create an insurance claim for one of my members. So let's go ahead with Stark Enterprises. And this is what my insurance tab looks like in my model-driven app. So we can see that with Stark Enterprises, they've got 3 insurance policies to date. So let's say a claims assessor comes along, they receive the claim, so now they need to create the insurance claim in the model-driven app. So let's say he's putting in a claim for $500,000 because, you know, it's Tony Stark. And let's say the claim was for today. And then they would select the insurance policies that are associated to their account. So let's go with public liability. And then it's going to automatically pull through information from the insurance policy. Okay, so I'm going to update this field to yes, because this is what's going to trigger the Cloudflow. So what's going to happen now is that the Cloudflow will be triggered. And then eventually what we're going to see on the top right is a notification appearing. So just bear with me.
I was gonna say, I love this example because it shows so many things. A, like the community, you know, open sourcing, building these great tooling that we can use and benefit from. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, with that, the same tool that you were just using, we could use it in Power Automate, or we could just use it if we do want to do the pro code approach or the full code approach and have it produce the code for us. And we just got to kind of plug and play that into whatever we're trying to do there. So it's really awesome. Then we're using Power Automate and just showing how we can integrate all the different Power Platform tools to make a holistic solution. So it's just such a great use case.
So we'll see that the notification has popped up, and if it disappears, simply click on the bell icon and then you'll see all of your notifications listed below from the most recent one. So what I'll do next is select View Claim. Now when I click on this, it's going to take me to that claim record that has just been created where I marked it as it requires an assessor. If I click on the other action, which is View Member, we're going to see a new browser tab appear and it's going to take them to the member record. So yeah, it really doesn't take that long to get started with in-app notifications with XRMToolBox, specifically the in-app notification builder tool. Anyone can do it, and I encourage you to try it out. If you want to see these steps in more detail, I do have a video on my YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check that out where I dive into it more.
Yeah, this was amazing, Eliza. Thanks so much. So we'll definitely include a link to your video and a link to some Microsoft documentation we have on if you want to do it the full code way too, because that's one of the things I love about Power Platform. There's multiple ways that we can interact and handle things. So this is a great use case of the community tooling with XRMToolBox and Power Automate and model-driven integration. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and go model-driven apps. Woo!
Awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time in the Low Code Revolution.